Hey, let's do a history pop quiz time on war in American history. I've been thinking about this a lot because Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 is based on the assumption that we are currently at war, which, spoiler, we're not. So I'm going to ask you just a few trivia questions related to the topic of war in American history. Pause if you need time to think about it. Don't put the answers in the comments. This first question has been especially on my mind because of the news. So, question number one is: when was the last time that the United States formally declared war? Congress issued a declaration of war, which, according to the Constitution, is the only way we can go to war. Pause if you need more time. The answer is World War II. So every conflict that you know the U.S. to have been involved in post-World War II was not formally a war, as the Constitution requires, like a declaration of war from Congress. It was some other action, and it was often evidence of the growing power of the executive branch to basically launch us into conflicts or determine when we're in a conflict with someone else without Congress's approval. On the topic of presidents and wars, which is a hint, who was the first president to leave the country during his presidency? Meaning, while he was in office, he traveled to another country. The answer is Woodrow Wilson. At the end of World War I. That was the first time ever that a US president left the country while they were president. Of course, Teddy Roosevelt's like going off and traipsing around Africa for a year and that sort of thing, but not while they were sitting president. Woodrow Wilson is going off to Europe to try to negotiate the peace. He wants to really push forward his 14 points, get the League of Nations going, and he actually spends too much time abroad and doesn't really consult with any of Congress back home, which is going to be his downfall when he goes back. And he's like, here, sign this. And Congress is like, okay, last two questions are fairly simple. Number one, what's the longest conflict in American history? We're going to move away from the formal technical definition of war. Just think of any conflict that we would kind of generally call a war in American history. Which one is the longest? That dubious distinction goes to the most recent war in Afghanistan, which hit 19.9 years, 19 years and 10 months, just edging out the Vietnam War, which lasted 19 years and 5 months, depending on when you how generously you determine the start of our involvement in the Vietnam War. And finally, what was the shortest conflict in American history? That distinction goes to the Spanish-American War of 1898. It lasted 4 months. Shout out Teddy, but not really. Shout out like tropical diseases and mosquitoes. That was what killed the vast majority of the Spanish troops that we were fighting on behalf of Cuba and other places, according to us.